So let's get started with Parent Night 2.0. My name is Alex Herby. I'm the Education Manager for PlayVS, working on the education team with the wonderful and talented Dr. Christy Kuster, who's named Alex Herby, and also Dr. Michael Russell, who's also on here for us. He's going to be helping us out with chat. And then our wonderful panelists who are going to be talking to us about, their experiences with esports in the classroom, dealing with parents and families in the community outside of, a district's or a school's initiative for esports. Mr. Jim Rand and Mr. Clint Dehuff, thank you so much, you both, for being here. We really appreciate it. So real quick, Jim, you want to give us a little introduction for yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jim Rand. I'm a teacher at Grizzle Public Schools in Griswold, Connecticut. This is my 20th year in education. I don't know where the time has gone, but it's been a great run. I've been working with esports and esports curriculum and coaching an esports team now for about 3 to 4 years, depending on how you look at it. And it's been, an incredible ride, and it's really changed the way that people look at gaming in our school district. It's also changed the way the students look at school. So we've had a lot of positive things that have come from it, but it's been, a transformative experience both for them and for me, to say the least. So, and I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. Clint.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Clint Dehuff. I'm the head of esports at Wichita Public Schools. So we have 31 esports labs. We're in our 6th year of esports. We're running about 3,500 to 4,000 kids now a semester through the gaming concepts class. And kind of my whole deal from the start of this was I want to make school more fun. And of course, there's got to be learning with that. And so gaming concepts did both of those things, and it's just been a phenomenal experience for our district. So, yep. And then we have our competitive teams as well. So yeah, we're having a blast with esports and gaming in Wichita.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, a couple of notes for the presentation today for the webinar. If you have questions, please go ahead and throw those in the chat. That's the easiest way for us to get a hold of those and for us to answer those. So those of you that are in attendance today, please, at any time, if you have any questions, please go ahead and throw those in chat just so we can do that. And we've got our last panelist here, Felix George. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. Could you give us a little bit of an introduction for yourself?
Felix just looks like he just zipped out of class today. Looks like he just ended his class.
Well, yeah, not class, but yes. My name is George Felix. I'm the community school coordinator at McLane Middle School in Pacoima, California, and it's in Los Angeles. It's a neighborhood in Los Angeles. We are currently the reigning middle school LAUSD champions here, and I was the head coach for that team.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I would just like to say that I was the tournament operator during that big win. Mr. Felix, I remember your big win and the celebration. I got to be there when you guys took the championship home. So just wanted to do that little shout out there. My first time as the tournament operator.
Very cool event. Yes, definitely.
You did great. You did great. So today's conversation, obviously, we're going to be talking about, the parents' roles, parents' perceptions in esports, right? Because as we engage families more and more through outreach and communications from the district, parents are always going to be kind of not always concerned, but definitely questioning of esports or the use of verbiage around video games or gaming and education, which gaming and education is nothing new, right? We've gamified education for the last 20 something years. 30 years maybe, depending on where you're looking at it. And so gamified education is nothing new, but in bringing in esports or bringing in video games is a whole nother beast because of the amount of stereotypes behind it. And so that's kind of the conversation that we're going to kind of have today with our experts who see this every day in their own programs and supporting and promoting their own programs with the communities that they have. So my first question I'm going to open up, I'm going to start with Jim here, but anyone can chime in. When parents hear gaming, they often think of distraction or wasted time. And how does your program or how does Scholastic Gaming differ from gaming?
Yeah, it's a great question to start us off. I look at Scholastic Gaming as the ability to teach using video games as the vehicle to get where you want to go. And I will say that I guess I'm fortunate in the sense that I didn't have a really difficult sell. Most parents bought into the idea right out of the gate. I mean, they see their kids playing games, and the question really is, what can we do to leverage that love of gaming, that interest in gaming into measurable outcomes? Learning how to use software, or, fostering a sense of community, or building something that they hadn't had when they were at home with it. So, in my classroom, gaming is absolutely, it's considered normal now. Like the first year I did it, I think everybody was like, "Whoa, what is that? How is it possible a school has gaming?" And then after a couple of years, a year or two of it, people were like, "Oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like I see the why. I see why kids like it, and I see what you're getting out of it." Parents have been very supportive. Our board of ed's been very supportive. I won't lie, the one group that I had a little bit harder time to sell was other faculty members. I think at first they were not as supportive, but over time, I think most of them have been won over as they see the value. They see why this makes sense, why it can draw kids in and do what it does. But the misconception I think is that gaming is a waste of time. And I really hope that that narrative goes away, and it can be that gaming is a valuable tool to get kids engaged at a variety of different levels for a variety of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. George, Clint, you got anything you'd like to add?
Well, Alex, I'd just like to add to what Jim said there about the faculty, because Mike Russell, he brought gaming concepts to our school, and I would walk by the lab, and Mike would be playing video games. And I would often tease him and say, working hard there, Mr. Russell. And, there is that misconception that Mike was just there playing video games, which he was, but Mike was the penultimate uh, competitor. The kids wanted to play Mike because they wanted to succeed against Mike, and so we often talk about one of the biggest things kids learn is perseverance. And so they would fail and fail and fail and fail and fail against Mike, and then once they would win, if they would beat him, then which wasn't very often, but if they'd beat him, it was the ultimate win. But the
That,
faculty, including
Of
myself,
course,
like
yeah.
I
Of
had
course,
to,
we always cherry picked the game that I was good at, so that was how that worked. So
but as the building principal, I had to let that go, that he was working. That was Mike working, not just playing video games.
I
yeah,
think
well, I think that comes from, I think a lot of teachers experience it is, what I call CTE syndrome. And you have all the core teachers come through the CTE building, and it's like all the kids are having a blast and they're building stuff and they're blowing stuff up and they're, making all this cool stuff. And they go back to the other side of the building and it's just like silent, and there's books and so
There's
definitely convincing those
Shakespeare.
other teachers. Yeah. Hey, Clint, you were going to say something though.
Yeah, I just think for us, maybe 5, 6 years ago, we might have a little bit of hesitation. But so what we did is just invite the parents out, and we had parent nights and let them play the games with the kids. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, all these kids are like working together and they're communicating and they want to be at school. And it becomes kind of a no-brainer at that point once you can get them in and let them experience what the kids are experiencing. So that really helped us was those parent nights.
And if I could jump off of that too, that's a great point. We didn't really do a parent night in the traditional sense, but every year our school has an open house because we have a number of sending towns that send students, or can send students to our school. And we would put our best foot forward there. We would let parents see what was going on in there, and then show why it connects and how it connects to the bigger picture, and then let parents decide. But most of the feedback we've got, virtually all the feedback we got, was very, very positive. So yeah, those open houses where you can let parents have a bird's eye view in are really, really useful. At least they have been for us as well.
Yeah,
Well, Mr.
absolutely.
Felix, I need to prod you just a tiny bit, because I remember walking up to when you guys had your championship, and there were two moms that like shook hands and said, "My name's so and so," and they both had jerseys on, and "My name's so and so," and the other mom goes, "I'm an esports mom." And just that excitement of the parents that for the first time, maybe since early in elementary school, they felt welcomed and that their kid belonged in school.
Yeah, and I think that's the power behind the Scholastic Esports, right? Is that It's bringing something into the building that hasn't been there before to show structure and show success to these students that may not have had that before. And I think one of the biggest benefits, obviously. So, we know as we break misconceptions around gaming and esports in the building, we can see that, from my experience, from all of our experiences, because we've all done it in the education setting at some point and at some level, right? Gaming can be used as a tool for, teamwork, leadership, and problem solving, and getting that out to your community is a big, boon for its success and promotion, right? It's not just we're not sitting here gaming, we're not sitting here with headsets on, listening to chat from around the world. We are purposefully playing, and we are doing this with intent, right? And that's going to bring about success in a lot of different things. So, thinking about parents, George, talk to me about how you launched your program and any pushback or concerns you had from your community or parents when you decided that you wanted to do this at your school.
Yeah, so for us, we, it just so happened to be a game that I've been playing for myself for about 5 years. And so just, my job here as a community coordinator is to, conversate with kids, have conversations during lunch and nutrition. And over the last few months, prior to the season starting, I had just gotten an understanding of what the kids were playing and that just so happened to be one of the games that a lot of the kids that like to talk to me about video games were playing. So when the opportunity came about, I already knew who to go and ask if they wanted to join the team. So at first, the families, they were kind of like, "What do you mean?" Even the teachers, like, "What do you mean you're gonna, pull them out 10 minutes early on game day and things like that?" So, but by the time it was all said and done, and we were making the championship run, everybody was behind it. The teachers, the parents, and and just the confidence these kids felt from being a part of something that they might not otherwise be recognized for, because these are things they do at home in the privacy of their home. They're playing against the teams they're playing against, and that's the only recognition they get, is that they win, and maybe a few friends know they play it. But here you had a school wide. When we won the championship, we did a whole display at the front. We celebrated them in the quad, and they just garnered this huge confidence boost. And one thing I want to point out, my team had 6 players. We had a practice squad and a running squad, and of those 6 players, 3 of them had IEP. So you have kids that are used to going to schools, and where it's like a barrier of where it's really hard to get success sometimes, especially within some of the disabilities that our kids have, and this gave them confidence that they were going to school and doing something not only they enjoyed, but they were also having success in. And that's something that is something that's not thought about too commonly, and it's something that it really resonated with our kids here at McLane.
Anyone else? Thoughts or how your program started, and I know Jim mentioned that you guys had a lot of community support, but maybe I know you guys talked to other coaches around, but some other experiences that maybe coaches you've talked to or coaches you've helped out in the past in starting their programs.
Well, just to jump on what George said, I mean, I see it daily. Kids come in, they'll barely talk to anyone. They haven't been on a team before. All of a sudden, we get them in gaming concepts, get them in onto the esports team, and that's their group at school, which everybody needs that group. And all of a sudden, there they are. They got their confidence. They're speaking up in class, and that goes beyond just the esports team. That starts happening in every aspect of their school, and so you see that come into their English class, into their math class. They have this confidence about them just because they have their group and their involvement at school. So, I love that. And that's one of my favorite parts about this program, is I see that every day.
And Christy, how about when you guys started at Complete High School, and some of the comments or some of the conversations that were going on when starting this at Complete?
For us, probably we had a lot of support also. And I think, a lot of people talk about, who are the naysayers, and they are out there. I think our biggest group that I was a little nervous about, because there wasn't an example for when we started, and it was the school board. And, those are parents, they're community parents. And so actually, our superintendent invited us to present to the school board. And I say I never go anywhere without the students because it's easy to yell at the principal, but it's hard to yell at the kids. And then those school board members came over to our building, and we had a group of students that, played the games. And I get windy sometimes. I'm a talker. And our superintendent was like, you have 7 minutes and then it is over. It is done. And so I was adhering to that. And there were like 6 grown men and one woman on the school board at the time, and we could not get them out of there. They asked questions, they asked the students questions, they watched up on the big screen. And I think that, and you guys have said it, watching it outside of a basement or outside of, without the headphones on and behind closed doors, you can totally see the teamwork that's happening and the transferable skills that are happening. So it was just letting people in, and schools aren't always great at letting people in, and they're not always the most welcoming place. So I think that was the biggest piece for us.
Yeah. And I think as we've gone, when we did this, I would assume when we did Parent Night 1.0, I don't remember if that was 1 year ago or 2 years ago. The conversations are a little different. Like it was a much harder sell even just 2 years ago. But as esports and video gaming as part of Scholastic gaming kind of, runs through education now, is starting to make more of a headway in education, it's becoming a lot more normal and a lot more commonplace without a lot of the stigmas that have been attached to it before. So, and I think that we've been able to see that just in your responses tonight and our conversation. As parents come to you, or you have new kids come into your program or all that stuff, do you have parents come in with concerns that you hear a lot? Like what kind of concerns are you hearing? Maybe the new student comes in or somebody not necessarily familiar with the program. What kind of concerns do you guys get as teachers or facilitators of a program like this? Whoever starts is first.
I'll start. I think we get a little bit of concerns, of course, about screen time and kids being on the screens too much. And we've really tried to do a good job of not letting them be on too long and teaching. I mean, that's a big part of this in my book, is teaching. Like we know 94 roughly percent of kids are gaming. So as educators, it's our job to teach them the right way to do that. And then if we can, find ways that to get them more connected to school and have them more comfortable at school, then a lot of the things the naysayers say then quickly go away. Because we're showing, look at this great data on kids wanting to come to school. Put it in first hour, then they're going to come to school. I learned that from Dr. Kuster, and we do that here in Wichita all the time. That's kind of my thought on that. When you see these kids getting a college scholarship and this and that, it's hard to argue some of those things.
We did have a question, Clint, about that, and anybody can answer this, but when you talk about limiting or, being controlling or not controlling, but just, setting parameters on game time, do you also integrate like physical activity, and are there academic standards that the kids need to hit to be a part of a team? I mean, is that all part of the structure that you guys have created? Yeah.
I mean, one thing I love about gaming concepts is how you all have built in the health and nutrition side. I mean, I come from traditional sports, and I love that side of it. But what else we've done, which I think you've seen, Dr. Russell, is we brought in bikes and so we want kids to get up. Look, you've been sitting down playing this game for 45 minutes. Get up and ride the bike for 10 or 15 minutes. And they're competing on those things too. We're also looking into some other things like, very active, like flying drones and doing racing simulators. And there's a lot of ways in gaming and esports where it's not just looking at a screen the whole time. But yeah, if you could build in ways we built a huge walking track at one of the buildings recently, right? And so you've been on for an hour, get out and walk a half a mile. So any way you can bring that in helps.
And for me, it wasn't so much a concern, but something Clint said kind of resonated with me because we had two kids in my team that they had played the game, they were talented in the game, but they were eighth graders on the cusp of not being able to culminate last year. So when I set the guidelines of what it took to be on the team, what it took that you had to have good attendance, you had to have, you couldn't have any U's, you couldn't have any, all your grades needed to be C's and aboves, and you had to maintain a good grade point average. At first, those two kids, they were missing practices and they were kind of having the same kind of tendencies, but then eventually they realized that we won a game or two and they got the momentum going. And now all of a sudden I had expectations for them. They knew how they had to perform inside the gaming room and outside the gaming room. And by the time it was all said and done, they graduated with flying colors. Their attendance improved, and they were focused on making sure that they were able to stay eligible for the team because they knew it would be such a huge disappointing appointment to their teammates, not to me, not to the school, to their teammates to be removed from the team for not performing well. So I was checking in with teachers. I was getting feedback from teachers how they were behaving, they were being respectful and everything else, and that really helped shape who they became by the end of the second semester last year.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, concerns, screen time, health and activity, or, fitness, those are all valid concerns, right? Because as students get more screen time during the day because of devices and because of, e-learning or, differentiation, which kind of mandates almost having devices in the classroom, right? Because you can't teach 30 elementary school kids or 30 middle school kids at 30 different levels effectively, right? So that's where the devices come in handy. But, limiting them and having them understand that, there's like lessons to these things, time management, health, understanding your screen time and moderation, those are things that are vital to making programs like this successful and also making it like real and relevant to the kids because it's like these are real things that they're dealing with and their parents are probably questioning them about when they come home or or are concerned about themselves. So yeah, thank you for those insights for that. So we've got, yeah, Christy, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to jump on that a little bit because, this is not unlike what a lot of adults are dealing with. We're sitting at screens all day. We are less, we're more sedentary than we've ever been. Our eye strain and all of that. What are some of the transferable skills, not just health-wise, but skill-wise? And Jim, we'll have you start. What are some transferable skills that students start to see, parents start to see, the community at large start to see?
Yeah, great question. The soft skills being collaboration, the ability to work in a team, the ability to work with a team, those are throughout, whether it's the after school program, the esports team or during the day as well. But when we talk about actual skills acquired, the software that you learn, the skill sets that you learn, for my students, they'll be able to use OBS so they could learn how to stream or record video. They would be able to do basic photo manipulation. They'd be able to do some basic animation. Like those are foundational skills that can transfer over to a lot of different modalities. I'll give you one example. We have a Spanish teacher who runs an end of year project, and the students are assigned to create a commercial. So they have to build a commercial and they have to do it in Spanish. I don't know Spanish personally, but anybody who took gaming concepts with me had an advantage because they knew how to manipulate the video, how to edit, how to bring in, images, things like that. And that teacher came to me afterwards and said, your kids knocked it out of the park. I've never seen work like that before. They do well with the Spanish and struggle with the tech. And this time they did well with both. And it was clear that those skills transferred over, that you can use them in other places. And I think students at first do it because it's fun. And I do think after a while, students realize, okay, these different pieces I'm learning have, an application outside of this classroom. Where they'll go and what they'll do with it, I don't know. I told my students, I'm hoping one day I'll watch an animation, a movie, or a video game, and I'll see their name in the credits somewhere, and that's when I'll know my program is, gone gone full circle. But and even that being said, some of them have really improved their abilities with other projects and with outside projects quite a bit. But those are all transferable skills.
Can you kind of, and anybody can speak to this, but can you speak to, you mentioned video game and hoping to see your kids in the title and all the credits and everything, which is awesome. I can speak to that. Because it is very exciting when that happens. But what other careers like have your kids like gone into? Because I think when people think of gaming, they're like, oh, they're going to be in video gaming industry and they might be in the industry, but there's other things in the industry besides like developing them and those kinds of things. So
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to know exactly where kids end up when they leave high school, for obvious reasons, because you lose touch and kids can transfer from school to school. But I've had a number of kids that have gone into the IT realm. They've decided that they're going to get into, working for a company doing IT. I have one student in particular who's going to be a senior this year, and I have insisted that he look at schools for animation. He's a gifted animator, and I mean that sincerely. I expect to see him at Pixar someday. I've had a couple of kids that have gone in a different direction and they've done more media studies. So they've gone to like a school of broadcasting type program and used the skills, the basic skills that we've learned at the high school level and then turned them into a career path there. There's other aspects that I haven't seen yet. Some students might want to get into broadcasting. We call it shoutcasting in the esports world, but that transitions really well. So, it's mind-boggling to think all of the different modalities that you can be a part of when you're in the esports realm. Even the idea that you could go to college to get an esports bachelor's degree now, 10 years ago, I would imagine that was unheard of. And now you have kids that are going there because they're getting ready to become the next, tournament coordinator or working for, we actually have a former student. He was not my student, full disclosure, who works for Twitch. And he was a student at our school. And he got in contact with us and said that, he was amazed that our program with gaming concepts has gone where it is because he did it in an era right before it all came out. And he said, what a benefit that would have been having those skills leaving and going into that world. So I guess I could list another half dozen things, but it's just, it's amazing to think of where kids can go with the skill sets that they have. And it's exciting to see them do it. It's exciting to see them put it to work in some way where you can say, hey, that student really did something great with what they started at my school. So
Yep, I see a large number of our esports kids going into engineering as well. And, luckily here in Wichita, we have WSU Tech. So I've seen a lot of them going into those tech, IT, computer programming, cybersecurity roles. And like Jim said, it is sometimes hard to track where a lot of them end up. But I know we have a ton of kids right now that are playing at WSU and going in those engineering and IT type of roles. And the other thing I wanted to add is, these are our student tech teams also. So not only are they doing esports, but a lot of those, that's where the staff is coming when they need tech help sometimes. So they're already getting that experience and then going to a WSU Tech or one of those roles just seems, like a great transition.
Can I ask George, just because you're at the middle school level, are you seeing any of those middle school kids that they didn't know they were techie, maybe, or they did not know that they had a skill like that are taking, maybe would not have taken those STEM courses that are taking STEM courses? Is there a correlation there or no?
It's actually a little bit the other way around. I'm surprised by how much they know. A lot of times we feel like we need to kind of walk them through things, and they're teaching me things a lot of the time. So, this gives them the tool to be able to show some of those skills that they have. So it's been pleasantly surprising in that way. The interest is there, and I just think a lot of times they don't know how to express that interest, or they don't know how to or where they can show that they have these skills. So this gives them that opportunity, like I think Jim and Clint have been mentioning.
Great. Awesome. We talked about, the skills and, we talked earlier about how parents, may be concerned or something, but like, how do parents fit into a program? Do you have parents that are involved in your program or help out your program in any way? What role do parents play with your organizations, or your courses? We'll start with Clint.
Well, we've tried to make parents a huge part of this. And so I host city league tournaments. We're extremely fortunate here. I have a 72 seat gaming arena, and it's a great spot where, like for example, we had a Rocket League middle school tournament. The first one we had, I had no idea what's going to happen. And I had hundreds of parents, and they're sitting with their kids, they're involved. Like they said, they want jerseys, they want to support their kids. And if this is what their kid chooses to put their focus on, I've just seen phenomenal engagement with the parents, especially like we talked about earlier, inviting them out, make them a part of it, and then it becomes something for their whole family. The other thing is the parents, we get to sit down. Like at my tournament, I gave away a Nintendo Switch for anybody. So kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the Savannah Bananas where they're bringing the crowd into baseball. And I tried to do that with the parents. And we had parents just playing Mario Kart as much as they could, try to get the best time. And yeah, but if you get them involved like that, then when families show up, then it becomes like a community, not just a competition.
Okay. Anyone else? Parents' involvement?
I was just going to say this I will be, full disclosure, this has been a problem, I think, in esports, though, is getting the same buy-in from parents in the sense of going to an event, being at an event, at a live event, and it's more difficult to replicate this at the school level than it is, let's say, baseball, basketball, football. And I would love to be able to have, a way to do that. But unfortunately, that really is limiting when you have a lab and you use it at school. It's inside of the school. You don't have a viewing area. That can be a problem. I don't know. There's been talk, in some areas about doing community events where you can get a number of schools together and maybe split the cost of doing things, which I think makes a lot of sense, or at least.
So for us, I feel like it's being treated a little bit more on the sports side. It feels like we have the same type of criteria that you would have if you were running like a high school football team or something. It has the same type of expectations of the students, of the coach, and the professionalism. We're luckily very fortunate that the district is funding the equipment. They're funding, and by the way, they're funding it very well. They're providing a lot of equipment for us. They're providing a lot of. They just renovated. We already had really advanced computers, and they just gave us a lot more gaming laptops. They want us to grow the program within the school. They gave us more desktops, all of the equipment that we could ever ask for. They're expanding it to give us also equipment outside of the gaming so that we can have more STEM-based activities around the e-gaming. And so, in my opinion, and they also fund the coach the same way they would like the same type of stipend program that you would if you were like a sports team coach. So we are fortunate here that Los Angeles Unified is funding it, and we are and it's being treated as a sport, even though it's more of an activity, but it is being funded that way.
George, are you guys playing because LA Unified obviously is large enough? Do you play just other LA Unified, or do you go outside of LA Unified also?
Uh, from everything there were games, and I think it was more like on the preseason side where I think the schools were outside of LA Unified, but the tournament itself was within LA Unified. So I don't know if there was like an expanded league for a couple of games, but then it tightened up, and it just became. I know for sure that the playoff system ended up being a LA Unified event.
Yeah. Jem, what are they doing in Connecticut?
So Connecticut, well, I can speak first to my district. My district, just like George was saying, pays a stipend to the person that runs the esports program as if it were basketball, baseball, football, which is great. They see the value in it. They know the work that goes into it. So they're funding it well. The STEM side of things for us in the classroom, we use Perkins money to fund the gaming concepts program, and that also comes with all of the league passes, et cetera. So we use it to do that. And then Connecticut's a little bit of an odd situation because we don't have county government here. So every town has its own district. They're like isolated islands under one banner of Connecticut. So when we play, by definition, we pretty much have to play all of the other schools that are in our state. And that's worked out pretty well. Although I will say that sometimes it's difficult because because they're all different, right? Some of them have very developed esports programs. Others are just getting off the ground. Some haven't even thought about it yet. So it's a little bit of everything. But Connecticut does seem to be expanding and expanding pretty quickly. Some of our bigger cities, Hartford and some of the other places down toward the coast of Connecticut, are very much either considering signing on or have, and they're in the early stages of building pretty good sized programs.
And then Clint, we kind of talked about this is our first year in Kansas as an activity. So you want to talk a little bit about what this is going to look like?
Yeah, I've wrestled that in my head, that question, is this an activity or a sport, for a long time. And I think they made the right decision calling it an activity in our state. And I love how they're trying to build in a week of face-to-face, because we've talked about a lot of that and how that's really where the community becomes involved. From a funding standpoint, I am super fortunate and lucky. I am actually now officially the head of esports, even my title for the Wichita district. So that happened over the summer. But we funded it a little different. We funded it all through our IT office. And so I'm IT office, and that's how we funded it. We used some COVID funding in the beginning, but I have an arena, I have 31 different gaming labs, and then so that's kind of how we funded it. I will say the point that I wanted to add, though, is when I watch kids, I grew up playing football, basketball, and baseball. When I watch kids play in a Valorant tournament for 8 or 9 hours straight, I don't remember ever in any traditional sport having to literally focus and be on my A game for 8 or 9 hours straight. So to me, that looks like a traditional sport. I mean, these kids they're burning calories, they're using their brain like crazy, and to learn to focus for that long, to me, that is like a sport. And they're learning all the teamwork aspects, and they're working with their team. We have a team that came up with their own language so they could get commands to each other quicker. I mean, all of that to me is sport, but I think we're classifying it right as an activity.
Christy, sorry, I'm still waiting for things to.
Okay, that is perfectly fine.
Done,
I didn't want to steal your thunder there, Alex. If we
sorry,
were
but
getting
my power went out, and I'm still waiting for things to kind of kick. The internet's kind of hobbling along, and I'm surprised I'm on this right now still. So
One of the favorite things that happens in esports.
That's right. That's right. Are we on wellness and balance? My sheet just popped in.
Well, I was going to say, can we talk a little bit, and I'll give you a little bit of time to think. Clint, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know you have to leave here in a little bit. So is there a standout story that you have about a student who has thrived because of Scholastic gaming, or I don't know, just somebody that stands out for you?
Absolutely. I mean, my nephew is a perfect example. Phenomenal kid, wasn't super involved in high school. Let's say his freshman year, he got behind, didn't care about school. I'm freshman or sophomore year. And so I got with the esports coach. I'm like, my nephew could use a little push, and he likes video games. So we got him on the esports team. That he ends up with like a 3.8. He ends up thriving the rest of his high school and is now getting his IT degree from WSU Tech. I mean, that right there is like, I see that example all the time, is just kid doesn't know exactly where they fit in at high school, and not everybody is a traditional athlete or a musician. So like I like to go back to that stat. Our first year in this, we've had a couple massive studies done over our program, but one of them was like 84% of our gamers on our teams had never been on any team before. I'm talking YMCA soccer, nothing, and to think that they've never been on a team, and now we can at least show them, that confidence that builds having your team and your group. And, so my nephew's a great example. I have example after example. I mean, we had a kid that ended up playing in the Smash Brothers International Championship in Japan this summer and is now traveling with WSU's team. A kid that without esports, I don't know if he would be at college right now, So it's those stories like those that make all of this just make me smile and happy that I'm involved.
Yeah. Jim, standout story?
I have two. I'll keep them brief. I actually have many, but the two that stand out for me. One of them is a student. We hold students to the same academic standards as traditional sports, which is attendance, which is grades. We have a number of different things that we look at. And I had a student who failed off the team, and he was in danger of not graduating. And I pulled him off to the side, and I didn't want to let him leave the team because I knew the minute he got disengaged, this was going to go bad. So I said to him, "Look, I want you to continue to practice. I cannot put you in, right? I cannot do that, but I don't want you to leave. I want you to keep practicing with the team. I want you to turn things around. I'm going to be here to help you." And he did. He turned it around. He was eligible academically at the end of that quarter, and he went on to graduate. And that was a student that many people thought potentially was a dropout risk, and he made it. And I was always proud. And I'm still in contact with him to this day. Every once in a while, we check in with each other, and I'm proud to say that he's doing all right. He's working on his own and doing great. So good kid, really good kid. The other one is a student that is still a student, but we had a season-ending party. Normally, I do a little party with pizza and cake and things like that. And students started breaking down and crying. Student is transgender and said, "I'm so sad to see this end." And I said, "We had a fabulous season. Like we placed fourth in Mario Kart. Like why would you think that?" And the student said, "This is my safe place. This is where I can go and be with other people and be me, and it's safe for me. And when esports isn't in season, this ends." And that hit me really hard because you think about what this means to a student academically and where they can go with college or whatever. And this is a student who just looked at this as a place where I can be me. And there was no other place I think they felt that. So, stories like that are the things that make esports what it is. It can build senses of community with people that before had no community. And it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing to think that you're part of something bigger than you and that is there for you when you need it.
Yeah. George, I often think that and tell people, because I was alternative ed for 20 years at the high school level, middle school is where everything falls apart. You're no longer with a teacher and hold hands and stick together. And so a student that sticks out for you.
Yeah, so a couple, the one I mentioned earlier that, kind of turned it around in the classroom, but we also have another one that, he was kind of socially isolated and didn't really, he actually carries what they call a one-to-one with him, and he was always just kind of with the one-to-one, which is an adult. And by the end of this thing, like Jim mentioned, he was saying that he was super sad to see it go, not because of the tournament and the playing and the video game, which is all tremendous for them. It was more because the six kids didn't really know each other. They weren't like friends coming into the group. They were all kind of living their own social lives and from different areas in the social world. And by the time we were on that stage in the championship and celebrating the victory, they're hugging and high-fiving and it became like a little unit and a little family. And even for the last 2 months, 3 months of school thereafter, they had that special connection. And I think that that's what all sports, and growing up, like Clint said, I played baseball all my life throughout high school and everything else. And all sports does that. And some kids are not good at physical sports. And this gives those kids that opportunity to have that same sensation, that same camaraderie and that same family bonding that you develop with the good team. And they got to experience that. And for the remainder of the few months, they stayed in their social groups, but they were buddies, and they were still saying hi and hanging out whenever they got a chance. So that was one of the beautiful things to see.
Yeah. And Clint and all of you, just because your program is so big and it didn't start out that way, as we're getting the school year kicked off, what are your recruiting methods? Is it email or is it signs? Is it, how do you recruit right now?
Well, from the gaming concepts class recruits itself. I mean, I have for the supply and demand, I can't keep up with the demand. I've been running the past 3 weeks, adding machines everywhere I can to get more students in and most of the buildings that they start off offering at 1 block a day, and by the next year they're offering at 8 blocks a day or 7 blocks a day. That's kind of what I've seen with this. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that probably didn't answer your question.
Because you don't have a recruiting issue.
I don't have a recruiting issue. The esports teams, we market those with, posters, and I have paid coaches. Like, I was really happy to hear Jim and George. They also are, I've always said, esports coaches need to be paid just like a regular coach. But we don't have to recruit that much, except with the esports teams. Yes. I mean, we're marketing with posters. We're getting out in the buildings and that type of thing. And tryouts, we've always said about roughly 10% of your student population is going to show up. We probably get 8%, something like that. But really, it's just word of mouth and posters. It recruits itself.
Yeah.
And I got to jump off. I'm really happy y'all had me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Clint.
Thanks, Clint. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Clint.
Bye, y'all. Good to see you.
Jim,
All
what
right.
does your recruiting?
I think that question was to me. It was a little bit of interference there. Yeah, I keep it simple. Normally I put posters around the school. I do a pre-season meeting and I try to bring in all of the kids that are interested in playing that season. When we have 8th graders that come over to our school, because again, we take in sending towns, I always bring up esports. They come into the Nexus lab, which is our lab, and they see that. And then the gaming concepts classes themselves. Clint's absolutely right. Once kids are in there and they're gaming and they're with their peers, they realize what could potentially happen, what's possible. And then if they can find other like-minded students and form teams, that sometimes will work as well. My only limit really is how many units I have, how many computers I have, because I have, one room with 20 computers. I can't have 60 people in there. So unfortunately, it's just a function of how much space you have. But I really have not had major issues with fielding teams. So the demand is definitely there.
Jim, do you have a parent meeting also?
Good question. No, I don't, except that I do have a full permission slip that I have parents look over and sign. It details out the games that the kids will be playing, when the team meets, how things work. I also have that in the syllabus for gaming concepts. So when that goes home, parents look it over. They have the opportunity to ask me any questions. I don't normally hold an after school meeting. Sometimes that can be a little bit more difficult to do, but with modern technology, anybody who does need to contact me as a coach or as a teacher, they're more than, able to do that.
George, what does it look like at the middle school level?
So the first year, like I mentioned before, we kind of got lucky that I knew a couple of the kids that were playing the game, and so I was able to piece together the original 3 pretty quickly, and then we got 3 more that were kind of interested, and they came around and they ended up being our practice squad. This year, when we won the championship, when we were announcing it and we were having things in the quad to celebrate them and everything, I started getting more kids approaching me and saying, "Hey, I play it too. Hey, I play it too." I was too shy to come in. So right now, it's an active recruiting process. I almost kind of feel like a college football coach, go USC, by the way, for that one. And I kind of feel like a little bit like a recruiter. You're walking around asking kids if they play video games. I run a gaming club here at the school that a lot of the kids come in and play video games during lunch on Tuesdays. And in that group, that's kind of where I've been fishing to see if anybody plays Rocket League, and so it's an ongoing process, and I'm trying to make it an elite team. So the kids that are showing interest and the ones that are telling me that they want to play, I'm talking to parents. I'm saying, hey, if you don't mind, I'm trying to see if your kid can play this game, and I bring them in to the lab after school to practice and things like that. So it's an ongoing process, and hopefully we can find some good talent this year again.
Do you have a parent meeting, George?
It's one of the things I just wrote down to do, because last year we really did it informally. I think the first time the parents really knew their kids were actually gonna do it is when they signed the permission slip. But that's a good thing to do this year, and formalize it a little bit more. And so that's one of my goals.
Excuse me.
I was just going to say, and this is just kind of directed at parents and getting them engaged and excited, and I haven't seen your lab or where your kids compete, Mr. Felix, but I have seen Mr. Rand's and Clint's. So I will say, if you make an exciting space, the parents will be more engaged. They'll show up. So and you don't have to spend $10,000 on, I mean, just some cool lights and just. But when the parents show up and they're in a classroom, it's not nearly as exciting, as if you're like, oh, I'm in a special place where the kids compete. It's like walking into the football stadium or the basketball, arena. So, I think having those types of, and just taking a little bit of, whatever you can gather to get something off the ground to get started, and then, hopefully expand from there is really, if you're a parent, I think it just gets you a little more engaged that way too. So
Yeah,
that's all.
absolutely.
Input.
And we've heard a lot of stories, and obviously not everybody has the same situation, but I think that there's kind of one thread that runs through this whole conversation as we're trying to get parents more involved, and maybe, as a subset, your school more involved. It kind of relates across the board if you're trying to get this into your school or into your community, and that's esports and video gaming or scholastic gaming. It gives students who feel maybe, discredited in school or invisible in school, it gives them a place to be seen and celebrated, right? And so we're uplifting that bottom bit of students in your building to really make an impact in your school culture, your school climate, and really build success for these kids that may not have had any before. And also, as we've heard, pretty easy to do, right? It's fairly easy to recruit a video game class or a video game club or a team, right? Because they're already doing it at home. And so, of course, they want to do that at school. And if they can have a chance to be celebrated, that might be that positive moment in those parents' lives where, this is really the turning point for them. So, all of you that are out there watching this and all of you that are, here tonight, hopefully you can take that back as the one thing is that, this is something that will definitely build your school or build your community, and is not something that should be feared or stereotyped as a negative. So I want to thank our panelists tonight, Jim and George and Clint. Your expertise on this has been great. Your programs are great. Your kids are lucky to have you to be a teacher there and to be, such a champion for this. So thank you so much for being on here, both of you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. And then our two other moderators, Dr. Christy Kuster, Dr. Michael Russell, thank you so much, as always, for being on here with me, helping me navigate, obviously, some technical issues tonight. But thank you so much. If you guys are liking this kind of content, you want to learn more, you're trying to build a program at your school, or you're trying to get into esports, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down below, because this is where we put all of the content from PlayVS and education surrounding that kind of sphere where it's, the gaming concepts curriculum, or it's understanding how coaching works in a school space. And, we're having tons more webinars focusing on the teacher, on the educator, and esports. And so, so if you like this content, please do that. And then also come to the next webinar in 2 weeks. We'll be here again doing another topic. And you'll check the website for the next one, because I don't know it off the top of my head. So again, thanks to everybody who's out here watching. Thanks to everybody who has participated tonight. And we wish you all the best in your esports program and your endeavors. Again, thank you so much, and good night.